Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today we are going to be going through all of the books that I read in the month of March, except that I'm not going to talk about every single one because I already have talked about quite a few of them, and I read a total of 32 books in the month of March. Amazing. 6 of them were not middle grade, but all of the rest were middle grade for middle grade March. I did not make it a goal for myself this year to read a book a day or to read a total of 31 books, but that's just what happened. I get so excited about middle grade March and so many of the middle grade books on my shelves that I just can't stop reading. And it's a wonderful thing. I'm here for it, but that means I have a lot of books to talk to you about. I did already talk about quite a few of these, so I'm just going to go through those ones really quickly, and I will link all the videos down below that pertain to these particular books. I had a mid-month wrap-up. I did I did vlogs every weekend in the month. So one of them in particular was a Newbery vlog where I talked about 7 books in that vlog. My Korean weekend vlog where I talked about a couple of books in that one. Each of the weekends, actually, I talked about quite a few books, but these ones are from my first mid-month wrap-up, as well as some of my adult fiction. But we have The Deceivers by Margaret Peterson Haddix, continued a series. So did Momentous Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling. I read Each Little Bird That Sings by Deborah Wiles. My first book of the month, Soul Lanterns by Shaw Kuzki. The Beatrice Prophecy, a lovely book by Kate DiCamillo. Running Out of Time by Margaret Peterson Haddix. Amari and the Despicable Wonders by B.B. Alston. 2 books in the Wingfeather saga. The first one is On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. This was a reread for me, and then I continued the series with book 2, North or Be Eaten. 4 adult books that I've already talked about. The Letter Tree by Rachel Fordham. The Myth Makers by John Hendricks. The 2 Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver. And The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post by Alison Pataki. During my Newbery weekend vlog, I read 6 books that are Newbery winners, but I also read Keeper of the Lost Cities book 9.5, Unraveled, by Shannon Messenger. And then Missing May by Cynthia Rylant. Thimble Summer by Elizabeth Enright. Jacob Have I Loved by Catherine Patterson. The Summer of the Swans by Betsy Byers. And my favorite, The Wheel on the School by Minder Jajong. I can't pronounce that last name. And then this year's current winner of the Newbery winner, First State of Being by Erin Entrada Kelly. I will tell you at the end which of these are going into my favorites basket of the year. I have a few. I have quite a few this month. The rest of these I may have mentioned in a vlog, but I don't think I talked too much about them. I did have 2 more adult books, and both of these were on my March TBR, so I'm really glad to say that I got through 4 of the 5 books on my Flip and Roll TBR. So I did read Lost Lake by Sarah Addison Allen. I do think I've talked about this one. I really enjoyed this story of a mother and daughter following the grief of losing the husband/dad. They go to this camp on a lake that's a couple hours away, and the mom used to go there when she was a kid. And so it's kind of coming back to herself, coming back to what's important to her, finding again a purpose for living. And I just love, as you've probably heard if you've been here for any length of time, I love books that talk about grief, and this is definitely one of them. And Sarah Addison Allen always has a magical element to it. So in this one, the magical element is this alligator that, does it exist? Does it not exist? All I know is it talks to the young daughter who's about 11, communicates with this alligator, and it reveals some things about the people, the quirky people who live at this campground or who are visiting that they interact with. But I really enjoyed this. I find her books so charming. This was no exception. And then I also continued a series by Richard Osman, The Thursday Murder Club Mysteries. This is the 3rd book in the series, The Bullet That Missed. The thing that I love the characters in these books. I love the core group of people who live at this retirement home. It's more like a complex, like they each have their own homes in this retirement center, whatever. I love the core group of people. I love the mystery that we're dealing with that feels immediate, but it's also kind of encased in this larger story as well. And they're just so unique. Each of them has their specific giftings and things that they're bringing to the table. There were a lot of characters in here. I feel like I would have done better to like make a list of everybody, because there were just a ton of characters in this one, which I feel like is the case in all of them, but it's still a very enjoyable read. I ended up giving it 4 stars, I think. So good. Then we have a lot of other books still to talk about. So the 2 middle grade March group reads this year were The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett and Moon Garden by Michelle A. Berry. And between these 2 books, all 5 prompts get covered. Flowers on the cover, set in the 1900s, an author with 3 names, this one. Part of a series is Moon Garden and involves travel, both of them. All 5 prompts are covered in lots of books, but in particular, these 2 books cover all 5. I reread The Secret Garden this year. It's just a lovely story, so perfect to read in spring. I love how Mary transforms in this story. I also really loved this year how many people picked this up for the first time and fell in love with it. That really just made us all, the middle grade March team, it made us so happy that so many of you picked this up for the first time and really loved it. It's just about Mary coming to live with distant relatives that she never knew after the death of her parents. She had been abandoned and spoiled, neglected, not taken very good care of when she was living in colonized India. And then she comes to England to live with a distant uncle who's distant because he's never there, and learns the secrets of this big house and learns about a secret garden that she's determined to find. And with the help of a little bird, she finds it and is inspired to bring this garden back to life. And as Mary brings the garden back to life, her own self is reawakened and her sense of who she is, and she becomes a totally different little girl from the beginning to the end of this book. And I just love it. There are some other characters in there that are wonderful as well. I love this story. And then inspired by Secret Garden, we have Moon Garden, which is the first in the Plotting the Stars series. I have book 2 out from the library right now. I'm very excited to continue. This one is a Secret Garden-esque story, but set in space. We follow this girl, Myra, who lives on this basically moon, I think, is going to school and is expected to be a number whisperer, but that is not really what she's passionate about. And so she is often skipping class, discovering new parts of school. Then she discovers a lab that has been kind of shut down, and then through the lab, a secret garden. And plants in this world, they've had to leave Earth because plants became toxic. And so there's a very negative view of plants. And what is she going to do with this garden that she found? So there was a lot of parallels with The Secret Garden. It's definitely not a one-to-one retelling, but it was so much fun. I loved Myra's journey. I loved her finding the garden and who she brings alongside with her, the little bits of magic, the cutesy little robot that's in here. I loved the sci-fi elements. I loved the Secret Garden Easter eggs, and I just had a really fun time with this one. And I know it wasn't everyone's cup of tea to read a sci-fi book, but for those who read it and loved it, we're so thrilled that you enjoyed it as well. I did. I loved that one. I had 2 books that I read for my Patreon book club in March. We often do 2 in March because middle grade read quicker, but also this time it was because I announced that it was one of them in my TBR video, and then I went to look at the poll and actually a different one had won the poll. So the 2 books that I read for Patreon book club are The Swifts by Beth Lincoln, and I did not love this one as much as I hoped to. I found it quirky and fun. This is about a family, a very large family called the Swifts, who everybody in the family is named by looking at the dictionary, like picking a name out of the dictionary and that's your name. So we follow Shenanigan Swift, and Shenanigan lives up to her name. She likes to cause trouble, play pranks, gets into a lot of mischief. I was not thrilled at the beginning. I was waiting for some kind of story to start happening, but then people in the family start dying. And so then we have this mystery of what's going on. It's kind of a closed room mystery because there's a family reunion going on. There's an old legend about a treasure of sorts that is hidden in the house. The house itself is almost a character on its own, not quite, but Shenanigan is determined to find all the secret passageways, the hidden things behind curtains, behind paintings that she can in the house there, and she's trying to make a map of them. And so but this map that she's making gets into the wrong hands and is used for nefarious purposes. But once the mystery started happening, I was into it a little bit more. I thought it was quirky and fun. I think I would have loved it more when I was a kid. And I did love the conversation about identity and does your name determine who you are. In particular, identity in a lot of different characters was brought up. There's one cousin who is neither he or she, so I don't know the correct term for that, but so identity was a big part of this story, and the mystery was fun. But overall, I just gave this 3 stars. I definitely don't plan on continuing the series, and this one probably won't stay on my shelves. I would love to pass it along to someone who would enjoy it a lot more than I did. But then the other book that we read together with my Patreon was Prairie Lotus by Linda Sue Park. This is a book that's in a lot of ways similar to Little House on the Prairie books. We're talking prairie times, we're talking westward expansion, except this is about a father and daughter who travel from California back into the Midwest. And the daughter is half Chinese. Her mother was Chinese and her dad is white. And it's about a lot of racism that she experienced during that time period. Her dream is to be a dressmaker. The mom has passed away and always had a dream of the daughter finishing school. So she wants to finish school, but then she really wants to be a dress designer and maker seamstress. The dad and the mom had a shop, but because of riots that they experienced in LA during this time period, the mom got very ill and then never fully recovered from that. So the dad decided to leave the area with his daughter. So it deals with a lot of blatant racism that she experienced during that time, and many other Chinese in particular experienced during that time. The Chinese Exclusion Act was a part of our laws at the time, which is just horrible. And I liked how this was an answer to some of the racism that you even read in Little House books. Right away in this story, our main character, Hannah, encounters a group of Native women and babies out foraging for food, and it's such a positive and really lovely experience. And I love how that's a very outright counter to how Indigenous people are discussed and talked about in Little House books. So I thought that this was really, really well done. It was an interesting story. It was heavy hitting at times, but not done in a way that is trite or over the top. I thought it was so well done, and I loved the ending. It was realistic. She didn't get the whole town to fall in love with her, but she did. It does look like there is a path moving forward. So it ends on that swing up that you expect out of a middle grade book, but it also felt realistic to me. And so I just really loved this book. Well done, Linda Sue Park. The next 2 that I have are Amanda Made Me Do It books. Amanda had this one checked out from the library, and we kind of share some library accounts on Libby. Something Like Home is a book written in verse, and I'm so glad because I always love reading a book in verse, and I think this is my only one this year. Andrea Beatrice Arango is the author, and I did talk about this one in one of my vlogs, but I did want to just address it real quick again because I love that this one includes kinship care. The main story in this is that Laura had to call 911 because her parents OD'd on drugs, and in the process gets taken from them, and she goes to live with an aunt that she doesn't really know very well. While at her aunt's house, she makes a friend who has sickle cell, which is the disease that my brother had. And so I really loved the foster care element of this, but I also really loved seeing a character with sickle cell because it's just such a rare thing. I don't think I've ever read a book about that before. So this one hit hard for me. Definitely made me emotional, both with Laura's story and her friend that she makes. And I'm so glad that I read this. So thank you, Amanda, for putting this one into my hands this year. And then the other Amanda Made Me Do It book is The Length of a String by Alyssa Brent Wiseman. This is a story of a young Black girl who had been adopted, and she is into a Jewish family, and she's studying and preparing for her bat mitzvah. And in the process comes across the journal of her adopted grandmother who lived during World War II. And it's the story of what happened to her during that time period. And so she's learning about her grandma and what happened to her, as well as studying for her own bat mitzvah and wondering who she is. And she's 12, starting to have questions about her birth family and where did she come from. And there was a lot to unpack with this one. I don't think I loved it as much as I would have had I read it not on the bus coming back from New York City. I was very tired at the end of that weekend, and so I didn't do this really any service because I kept dozing off during it, and then I'd have to go back and re-listen to parts of it. But I do think it's a wonderful story, and it's just different from other things that I've read before. So I'm so glad that I read this one. It was fantastic. Another one that I had talked about quite a bit was A Spoonful of Time by Flora An. I did a whole trying new things weekend where I read this book about a Korean grandmother and her granddaughter learning to cook together. And then I tried K-dramas, K-pop, and Korean food for the first time. So I've talked about this one quite a bit. I'm not going to go into it here. It was a delightful read. Another one that I read kind of just randomly is The Wrong Way Home by Kate O'Shaughnessy. I can't remember if I've talked about this one or not, but this one follows a mother and daughter who leave a cult that they were a part of in New England or New York, and escape and head to California. But the daughter is young enough that she doesn't really understand that what they were a part of was a cult, and she's really, really upset with her mom for taking her away from what she had known for the last 6 years. And it's about her kind of discovering the world and life and coming to terms with what they got away from, just the relationship with her and her mother. This was a wonderful read as well. I loved Lasagna Means I Love You by Kate O'Shaughnessy, and I still like that one better than this one, but this was a fantastic read. I enjoyed it very, very much. Two that I kind of slipped in right at the end of the month are The School Trip by Jerry Craft. This is the third book in the New Kid series. It is a graphic novel, and I didn't read any other graphic novels, so I wanted to read at least one this month. So I did read this one, and it also continues a series, or finishes a series, I believe. This was okay. I definitely like New Kid the best out of this trilogy of graphic novels. We just continue to follow Jordan at the school where he's at. In the first book, he's the new kid, and then he makes some friends. His friend group grows, and this one was a lot about how to treat other people and what the difference between kind of bullying and mean jokes as opposed to friendly jokes where people laugh and think it's funny, and what the difference of that is. It goes really into depth of that situation, because there is a bit of a bully on the trip. Everyone in the school takes different trips, and you can sign up for which trip you want. This Jordan and his friend group go to Paris, the art trip, and the bully is also on this art trip. So they have lots of conversations with this kid, and they teach him how to be a better friend, basically. So it was kind of cool, but it was like meh. It was all right. It was just okay. Another one that was just okay for me is this chunker, Big Tree by Brian Selznick. I have really enjoyed books by Brian Selznick before. He writes in such a unique way where some pages are full-on pictures. This is in all of his books. Some are partial picture and prose, and then some are straight prose. We follow two seeds that are brother and sister on their tree, on their mama tree, and a big weather event happens. Was it a forest fire or tornado or hurricane, something like that? Anyways, they leave off of the tree, and it's about their journey of trying to find a place to grow roots and plant themselves. There's a whole thing at the back about the science in this book and where it came from and what he was trying to accomplish in talking about all this stuff, from dinosaurs, changing of the age, life on Earth, the moon. The little scientists are like little plankton, like little tiny planktons that they encounter at the bottom of the water. As somebody who is a creationist, I don't always love this type of a story that that talks about more like a Big Bang and a meteor hitting Earth, and that's how life started. And I don't know, it just was a little out there, different creation story than what I believe. There wasn't enough story in this to carry it on for me. I definitely am glad that I borrowed this from the library instead of buying it, because it's not my favorite Brian Selznick. And I thought the illustrations were not dark in tone, but like literally, what is it? Like a lot of they were just partial. Here's our little seeds. I don't know. I didn't love the illustrations. I didn't love the story. It was just okay for me. It was just okay. And that is it. So 6 adult books, lots more middle grade. And the ones going into my basket this year for this month, and we'll see what happens at the end of the year, but I'm putting 5 middle grade books into the basket of favorites and 1 adult. These are the 5 middle grade I'm putting into the basket. We'll see at the end of the year which ones stick with me more, but Amari and the Despicable Wonders, The Wheel on the School, Moon Garden, Prairie Lotus, and The Wrong Way Home, I'm going to put in there for middle grade reads, and then The Letter Tree for an adult read that I loved. So those are going into my favorites basket, and that is going to wrap up March. Oh my goodness. Some of these really need to get back to the library and I need to put these all away, and I'm ready to move on fully into April and get these piles off of my shelf. They've just been all sitting on my shelf ready to talk about them with you. So that is it for the end of my March wrap up. Thank you so much for being here and spending a few minutes of your day with me. I hope you also had a wonderful month of reading in March, and I would love to hear what were some of your favorite reads of the month. Whether or not you participated in middle grade March, I would love to still hear what you loved. I always love chatting with you in the comments, so I can't wait to talk to you down there. And if you've made it this far, but you don't really have anything to add in the comments, go ahead and put a stack of books, because I read a ton in the month of March. Definitely don't expect this big of a wrap up again until next March. I always love going whole hog in March. But throw a stack of books emoji in the comments if you would just like to let me know that you made it here all the way to the end. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you for being here, and I look forward to chatting with you in another video very soon. Bye.